I believe that Bitcoin is heading down somewhere probably south of 50. We could get in the 40s. Sentiment at the bottom will be Bitcoin's time has come and gone. The Bitcoin phenomena is over. I personally think Bitcoin goes above 250.
Hello, welcome back to Cointelegraph's Trade Secrets, our very own crypto markets show here on X. My name is Kieran, I'm your host, and today I'm joined by veteran trader Peter Brandt. Peter, it's great to have you back on the show.
Always good to be with you.
Now, everyone is asking, Peter, at the moment, I know you've been posting a little bit about it to your over 1 million followers on X as well, about where Bitcoin's price is going. So in your eyes, where is the asset's price going right now?
Well, I always have to give the caveat. I could be right, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again. But I have felt uh, going back many, many months that we would see this bear market in Bitcoin, that we would, yeah, and if you remember correctly, Syrian, in correspondence with you, last year, I predicted a high in Bitcoin within a day or two of October 4th, which we topped. And so I believe that Bitcoin is heading down somewhere probably south of 50. We could get in the 40s. And, we could overshoot. Look, I mean, Bitcoin is a tremendously volatile asset. And so to try to predict the price of Bitcoin, even within 20% of where it might go is that's pretty accurate. But I think Bitcoin heads lower. We come to the point where we get complete capitulation. I mean, heck, we've had precious metals excitement, we've had tech stock excitement. Bitcoin has lost a lot of friends, and so a lot of people have given up on Bitcoin. It's like
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
Bitcoin days are over. So I think Bitcoin bottoms somewhere in early October of this year. So we go down. We may see a bounce first. We could get a $10,000 bounce in Bitcoin somewhere along the line here, but then gradually go down. And so I think that we'll see a low in Bitcoin somewhere in early October. And we will have an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at lower prices than where we're at, possibly into the 40s, high 40s maybe. And then that should be it. If Bitcoin continues to follow some very reliable cycles that it's had since its inception. Of course, that's always the caveat: is you get a well-developed cycle in a market, and that's about the time the cycle changes, which is always the
Mhm.
risk. But the Bitcoin cycle has been very, very consistent in many regards, and that would tend to point to me to be a low sometime early October. I'll say October 4th. I'll go out on a limb and say we bottom October 4th. So we'll see.
If you like cutting edge markets alpha, make sure you're subscribed to Cointelegraph's Market Outlook newsletter. Now, I want to hear from you, Peter. Why do you think right now isn't the bottom? A lot of people are saying that, the $60,000 mark, it's starting to hover around this mark. What makes you feel, or just the signs that you're seeing in the market, that it's still got a few more months before it ultimately hits the bottom? What kind of feeling are you getting about this?
Well, I mean, if you go out on Twitter land back when we were 80 and you said, well, Bitcoin's going to 65, Twitter would be filled with comments. I can't wait. I'll have orders there. I'll buy it there. I'll buy it at low 60. I'd love to buy Bitcoin in the low 60s. Uh, but I think if you had gone out and said Bitcoin's going to the 40s, you'd have had people say, well, Bitcoin's no good anymore. So I think we go to the point where the hardcore bulls finally give up and just go. The sentiment of the time would not be that we're bottoming here in the 60s. The sentiment at the bottom will be Bitcoin's time has come and gone. the Bitcoin, the Bitcoin phenomena is over. Bitcoin will never go back up again. So the same people that are saying Bitcoin's bottom at some point in time will be giving up on Bitcoin, throwing in the towel and saying, we're done with Bitcoin. We're going on to other assets. The Bitcoin phenomena is done. Bitcoin no longer. I think we see that negative. Right now it's neutral. Markets don't bottom on neutral sentiment. Markets bottom on panic and volume, big volume days. So that's what we have ahead of us, if I believe it to be true. Now, maybe 60s will be the bottom, but I think whatever it is, it'll be October, and it could be we rally here and then come back down to generally the levels we've been at here. Trying to bottom, but we bounce and we come back down, but we still put that bottom in October, whether it's at these kind of current levels or we crash through and really blow people out and move into the 50s, possibly the high 40s. You have to remember every major bear market in Bitcoin in its history since its inception has been an 80% plus correction. If you take Bitcoin's high in the 120s, that would indicate that consistent with past bear markets, Bitcoin could go into the 20s. I personally do not think that we follow historical precedent on that, simply because I think Bitcoin has become a much more mature asset, will not have the downside volatility it's had in past bear markets.
So, okay, let's say we get to the bottom in October. Where to from there, Peter? Are we going to see all-time highs in 2027? Are we going to finally see that $250,000 mark? What's going to happen then in the following 12 months after we hit that bottom?
Well, people are going to give up on Bitcoin. Personally, I think the story of Bitcoin is it's a store of value. I personally think Bitcoin is a superior store of value, and it ranks up there with gold. Gold and Bitcoin ultimately will co-own the title of the best store of values longer term. Sure, they have cycles, but a long-term store of value. It's a place to place wealth. It's a place to hold wealth, especially during the up cycles. I think that Bitcoin will then go somewhere, and this is a wild guess. At this point, hey, these are wild guesses at this point. I personally think Bitcoin goes above 250. I think Bitcoin tops then in 2029. So we will not see a top in Bitcoin until 2029, probably late summer 2029, 250 to 300.
Do you think people are really going to start to get fed up and bored then? I mean, a lot of people are hoping that if we do bottom this year, that we're going to see this rebound in 2027. And some industry executives have been calling for all-time highs as well in 2027. So if you're saying that we're not going to see this top now for another few years, I mean, that's going to probably lead to very awful sentiment around the asset.
Well, their sentiment moves up. I mean, there's nothing more bullish to a market than sold out bulls. And if you wash out the Bitcoin bulls, then they don't believe the bottom when it comes. They don't believe the first rally. And they end up chasing again. They end up being FOMO things. But Bitcoin bull markets in the past have not gone straight up. I mean, we typically have numerous corrections in bull markets in Bitcoin that range anywhere from 20% to 40% type corrections. We'll see those kind of corrections again. We go up to 100 and back to 80. We go to 130 and back to 90. We can see those kind of corrections. Those kind of corrections really keep a market stronger long term, because they tend to keep strong hands in and wash the weak hands out, because it's not the strong hands necessarily that cause the spikes. The spikes that come along the way during the course of bull markets are usually caused by FOMO panic buyers. They buy in panic, then they get washed out again. And, when they get washed out, it's strong hands that then step in. So I think from here on out, strong hands are buying. Uh, the bottom will be put in by week longs, finally throwing in the towel, saying enough is enough. I'm done. I'm done with Bitcoin forever. I'm now going to go trade AI stocks and maybe another silver bull market. So, I think that we've seen a rotation in what the typical FOMO traders are involved in. If they've been involved in Bitcoin, they're pretty much out of Bitcoin now. They're chasing AI stocks. They're chasing now healthcare stocks. They were in silver, they were in gold, and so it's fickle money. The type of buying that puts in tops, the type of selling that put in bottoms, are typically by the retail traders who, at the end of the day, panic.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I want to get to AI stocks with you very soon, but just in terms of your timeline there, Peter, with Bitcoin in 2029 seeing a top, have you taken into account as well the potential uh, out outcome of the midterms coming up later this year, and also the potential for an anti-crypto US government in the next administration as well, and how that might impact Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen how a pro Bitcoin administration has helped Bitcoin, right? It's gone straight down. I mean, we've been in a bear market during a pro crypto administration. We've been in bull markets during anti Bitcoin administrations too. I think at the end of the day, you get knee jerk reactions coming out of Washington, but in the long term, markets find a equilibrium point. They find their value. Water reaches its own level. Eventually, you can hold it back with the dam, but eventually, water is going to reach the level it's going to reach. Um, yeah, I mean, in some ways, an anti-government, anti-Bitcoin government, you can argue is constructive on Bitcoin, because what it represents is an opposition to it represents a pro-fiat position. And I just think
Hmm.
long term, any government that is pro its own currency is going to come out a big loser. That hey, when we look at gold and we look at Bitcoin, longer term cycles, what we're really saying is that it's a bear market in fiat currencies. Another way to look at a bull
Yeah.
market Bitcoin is to say that's a bear market in fiat currencies, because gold is priced in US dollars. US dollars is the denominator for Bitcoin by most people. And so really owning Bitcoin is a short US dollar position in a real sense.
How do you think the Trump administration has impacted Bitcoin then?
Bitcoin's going to find its own place in the world. It's plenty capable of doing that. And it's a brilliant solution to holding wealth. Just absolutely brilliant solution. I mean, the biggest threat is not going to be an anti-government. The biggest threat, of course, is going to
Mm.
be uh, when we go to quantum computing. All it's going to take eventually is one hack of the protocol, and Bitcoin would be done. I mean,
Mm.
Bitcoin's hacked all of the time in terms of where it's being stored, but I'm talking about a hack on the protocol. Um, but the people that I listen to that I believe are really smart on that just don't see even that happening. I just think long term, it just doesn't matter what administration's in and what they're saying about Bitcoin. Um, Bitcoin's going to find its own value. Of course, the real thing would be if we can get, you know, Sailor done get washed out of Bitcoin. That would, of course, be the real bottom. If we can start seeing some liquidation over on that side, people assure me that that can happen. But I've come to the point nothing is impossible in the markets. Markets always do the impossible.
What do you think needs to happen, Peter, for Michael Saylor to be washed out of the market?
I think you get enough investors that just say, "I'm done. I'm going to take my loss." Yeah, I've got some sort of safety net underneath me in terms of how of how that of how that whole investment is constructed. People argue that nothing will take them out of the market, of course. And that may be true in terms of price not taking them out of the market. What takes them out of the market is investors that say, I'm done with this. I've had it. I want out. I'll take my loss. I don't care about the guarantees. I want out. Well, that becomes forced liquidation. You look at where his average price is. Now, people argue his average price doesn't really matter. His average price is much lower. And so it doesn't necessarily even mean that he will eventually be blown out or that his blowing out will be the bottom. I think he could survive this actually. And I think the bottom's put in by some of the stubborn retail longs that will finally just say, I'm done, especially if you get another upturn in silver. If you get another upturn in silver or gold, then you have a viable alternative investment that's going to be outperforming Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, all retail longs are weak longs at the end of the day. And so it's possible that Michael can survive this. It's also possible that he could have, there has been some liquidation, which of course everyone's saying was planned and that it was routine and there was nothing alarming about that. And that could be the case. But I mean, it's likely to me that we could see just some natural liquidation by him, and that won't put in the bottom. I think it's more likely that it'll be a complete capitulation by the retail longs that'll put in a bottom in October.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit? Obviously, Peter, you've been very vocal on Twitter over the years within the Bitcoin and crypto community, and you've got over 1 million followers. A lot of people in the crypto community follow you. Can you let us know what you think is the biggest mistake right now that Bitcoin traders are making just watching their charts online?
Charts have had their day of popularity, over time. During my time as a trader, I've seen different modes of technical analysis come and go. We happen to be in a mode right now where the retail trader is they're chartists and they're measuring VWAP and all kinds of other indicators, and they're
Yeah.
looking at indicators. And that comes and goes. 20 years from now, there may not charting may fall out of favor. I don't know. I just think that someone who's trading Bitcoin and trying to do so from a chart just needs to realize that the markets play tricks on you. Ultimately, it may not be the unconscious intent of markets, because markets are really not cognizant entities. But ultimately, what accomplishes in markets, free markets, is the just redistribution of wealth from the many to the few. I mean,
Hmm.
throughout history, that's been the case. Marketplaces redistribute wealth from many to few. The money ends up in the hands of few. So I just think being obsessed with charts is really needs to be secondary to being aware of the fact that there are very, very reliable cycles that are long-term cycles in Bitcoin. And one has to follow those cycles until they are proven wrong. And so far they have not. There are many cycles in Bitcoins from high to high, low to high, high to low, uh, uh, halving to high, low to halving. There are all kinds of cycles in Bitcoins within what I call the banana model, which
Mm.
your viewers should be familiar with. And they've been very reliable. They've been reliable almost to the day. And so for me, I have to take the assumption that those cycles are going to continue to repeat until they don't repeat. Then it's going to be back to the drawing board to figure out what's happening to price discovery in Bitcoin. And so this bear market in Bitcoin is entirely dependable. I mean, anyone who thinks that Bitcoin should be in a bear bull market right now is not paying attention to the big cyclic nature of Bitcoin. If you're paying attention to the big cyclic nature of Bitcoin, for right now, one has to believe that prices are not going higher.
Now, Peter, you've been trading for 51 years as of recently. Congratulations. You made a post not too long ago saying that you are celebrating your 51st year actively trading. If you had $10,000 right now to split between Bitcoin, gold, and AI stocks, which you mentioned before, AI stocks is and has been sucking capital from the crypto market. If you had to split $10,000 between those three markets, how would you do that?
Well, I think AI right now is where dogfood.com was in 2000, right in the year in the year 2000. I'm I do not believe that somebody who goes all in on AI stocks right now will be very happy with that investment 2 or 3 years from now. Now it could go higher. Picking the top of a blow off market, a vertical market, markets that go vertical, picking the tops of those, that's dangerous territory. I
Hmm.
mean, one thing is taking profit. The other thing is if you try to short it. But I think that we are in a bubble in AI stocks. Bubbles can become bigger bubbles. I mean, who knows where bubbles can go? Someone could short this bubble and lose everything they have by the time the bubble pops. I think this bubble will pop. That AI evaluation is extraordinarily obscene right now, and markets do not allow obscenities forever. But we are in an obscene bubble in AI stocks right now. So if I had to split 10,000 between AI stocks and Bitcoin and precious metals, I think precious metals are closer to a bottom price wise. I think Bitcoin may be closer to a bottom time wise. And so I would have to be a buyer from here on down. If I was taking a look and saying, I want to put $10,000 into a portfolio that I will die with, that will be inherited by the next generation, by a family trust, I would probably at this point, and those were my only three options, I'd probably go 50-50. On
With
a scale
Bitcoin.
down. I mean, right now, silver in the mid 50s is a great buy, I think. Gold
Mhm.
under 4,000 is a great buy. And so maybe you don't, maybe you don't spend all $5,000 right here, but you definitely have some ownership right here. I think you have some ownership of Bitcoin here as well, with the plans that as we go down, you just buy on a scale down basis. I think doing that with the $10,000 bill 20 years from now is going to be a portfolio worth who knows what, 100,000, 200,000, something like that 20 years from now. So, yeah, I would be entirely comfortable taking $10,000, splitting it between gold, silver, and Bitcoin, and letting future brands inherit that, with the decision to maybe cash in another generation.
Now, I'd love to talk to you about the broader crypto market as well, outside of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the altcoins. What's your thoughts on that market right now?
Well, it's the same thought I've always had. Bitcoin is crypto, and crypto is Bitcoin. I mean, all this other junk, Ethereum, Sol, XRP is not a bad one. I mean, you have to look and say Bitcoin's the store of value play. Then what's your transactional play? And there are some coins that do better transactionally than others. And of course, a lot of people are talking about those alternative coins upon which things can be built on. Things being built on, that always changes. Uh, technology upon which we can build things on 10 years from now will not be altcoins. I think 90% of all the coins will end up broke or lower. Now, having said that, there are some things on the charts right now that make me believe that we may go into a somewhat perhaps minor altcoin season, that we are on the verge of an altcoin season right now. That Bitcoin can suffer, but that we could see some rallies in altcoins. I mean, after all, you look at what altcoins have done; they've been massacred. They've just been absolutely massacred. And so we could see some of those have 20, 30, 40% rallies. But I don't think it would
What's
mean
giving you
anything.
that feeling, Peter, that we
Well,
might see
when I
a,
look at the
good
charts and
season?
I look, for instance, at Bitcoin as a percentage of all, and I might look at ETH Bitcoin, XRP Bitcoin, look at some of the individual charts where I see some signs of a bottom. It makes me believe that we could see an altcoin season that might last through the summer, maybe through the summer. Now, I don't know which of the junk coins are going to rally. I have no idea which ones get latched onto and become kind of the ones that get chased. Who knows what? Because I think at the end of the day, if we're talking transactional coins, I think just the nature of technology itself will provide better transactional alternatives down the road. What's unique about Bitcoin is that it's not transactional. It is a store of value. I don't see any other coin that's a store of value play.
Peter, I know you're not following the altcoins as much, but for retail traders that are thinking when the next altcoin season comes around, they're going to try and make a bit of money. From your experience in trading over the years, what advice would you give them if they're purely just trying to find charts that they can make an extra buck or two on?
You want to, for me, I would look for a chart that forms some sort of bottoming formation of some sort, where you actually see a recognizable bottom that complies with, some of the rules of charting. I mean, ETH is one. I mean, ETH right now appears to possibly a bottom, coming across 18 and a half. I think they're the possible bottom. I think we could go back to 21, 25, something like that. I think I think Cardano it would be one where definitely see a bottoming pattern there. That could take price right now from wherever it is, 16 cents. I maybe doubles, maybe it doubles. But I just think when you deal with these altcoins, a lot of it is you've got to get into some of these moves. These moves feed on themselves. And so you never know which one's going to have the run, because what happens is momentum gets developed. And so you look for the strongest. That's what I would say. Don't look for the ones that you think are going to play catch up. Oh, I'm going to buy this because it hasn't moved yet and everything else has moved. I think if you're playing the altcoin game, you need to look for classical chart patterns that indicate bottoms, and you need to buy the strongest. Be long the strongest. Don't be long the weakest, thinking that it's going to catch up because everything else has gone up. So that would be my big advice to those people foolish enough to be in the altcoin game.
Some people have argued as well in more recent altcoin seasons that not to go chasing the ones from 2021, which is like the Cardano and those sort of coins. So do you think that from your perspective, sorry, Peter, that they should be just chasing the more, I guess, veteran tokens in the altcoin game because they've always got to come back? Is that what you're pretty much saying?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't even go beyond what I've already said, because it's just I don't follow them other than I see the charts. When I scroll through my charts, they pop up. But the only ones I really have in my chart listing are some of these older ones. I'm not always following the new coin. That's just not me. I don't live in that world. I don't live in the world of a coin that's come into it vogue in the last year or two. It's just I just have no interest in that world. And so I don't follow all of the new things that are the new gadgets.
Absolutely. Well, I've got one final question for you, Peter. A lot of people are pointing to 2030 as a potential for $1 million Bitcoin. You seem to maybe be a bit more conservative, pointing to 2029 with 250,000. First of all, when do you see $1 million Bitcoin? And secondly, what do you think are the biggest catalysts right now that could potentially stop Bitcoin from ever hitting $1 million?
I think the biggest threat to Bitcoin is going to be quantum computing. Not necessarily that quantum computing will somehow hack the Bitcoin protocol, but that quantum computer will bring with it brand new things that we can't even imagine at this point. That, it's just going to be technology and ways to do transactional business or even store of value that's beyond us. I don't really see a high. Oh, I think we're out. $1 million is 2031, 2032. If that happens, we're not going to see it in 2030. We're going to be in a bear market.
Okay, awesome. Well, Peter, thank you very much for joining us on Trade Secrets. I appreciate you coming on.
I always appreciate it. I always appreciate corresponding with you. You're one of those people who has a voice in Bitcoin that I can always rely on, is fair and balanced to both sides of the argument. Now, I do appreciate that in you, and it's why whenever you correspond with me looking for something, I am quick to respond to you. And I appreciate the way that you treat the category as a journalist.
Oh, thank you very much, Peter. I appreciate the kind words, mate, and obviously love having you on as well. So I hope to have you back on the show again soon.